Alright, first quarter. I'm gonna try something new. I felt like I needed to, with this new league setup, I couldn't just make videos and play them with no audio and have people understand what's going on. Incomplete pass there. And several things happened. I've tried several times playing around with this play-by-play thing. People have told me it's something I should do since I was very young, but I didn't quite like it. There's even a feature in this year's game where you can set the amount of time between plays so you could have commentary and play-by-play and things like that. So that's very cool of Danny to do that, Danny and everyone else. But Danny's kind of like Trent Reznor in that, yeah, it's called Access Football, but it's pretty much just Danny as far as the program is concerned. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. We're not even 2 minutes into the game and I'm already put my foot in my mouth. What was I talking about? So, I saw the Manning Brothers show, and I really liked that format, both as a fan and as a potential host. And I also caught a little bit of a super casual game, and it had kind of the same vibe. I don't know if it was just the one game I watched or that's how they do all their games, but Brian's awesome, and I figured if that works for them and they have such a great league, I could do it for my league. My biggest concern coming into this was, would my voice last? I used to go through a work day at my summer job, and it could be a pretty social job. Worked in groups of 7 or 8, and it was putting books away, college textbooks. So there's some coordination, there was some teamwork, but I would try and count how few words I said during the day. I was that antisocial, and I took pride in how little I talked. So, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm not really a talker. Until very recently, I considered myself an introvert. I think I sort of default to that in social settings, even though I'm not nearly as concerned about what other people think of me as I used to be. I still find it easier to just fade into the background. And I just realized that while I was blabbing, San Francisco kicked a field goal. Maybe for my own sake. Well, no. I don't want the game audio to be... And then I'd have to match it up with the audio coming over the mic, and it would just be bad. Now we're at the 11-minute mark, and I'm talking about my personality type. So we're hitting a lot of benchmarks. Another thing that happened is pretty much no one ever watched last year's games, and it would take about 2 hours-ish to render and cut and upload. Even more than that if you considered how much actual time it took. I'm talking about the amount of time it took me personally. I'd push the render button and then walk away for a couple hours, but it would eat up, that many hours of computer time. I have one computer, and so it was kind of a commitment. So I figured if no one's going to watch these, I might as well do what I want and not be as afraid to make it as cringe as I could. So here I am, and I made it to the 9-minute mark, 9.5-minute mark. Another thing I wanted to mention was I did sort of a beta test for my voice. I have a very soft voice, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I figure if my views are going to be in the single digits, I'll just adjust for next time. But right now, it's cranked all the way to the top. So if it's not loud enough, I don't know what else I can do. I've done podcasts in the past with mixed success. San Francisco is up 6-0. When I was in the Axis Esports League, Antonio, he's a wide receiver for San Francisco. But the real Antonio, I think it's fitting that they have 2 field goals right now because he made his kicker a total stud. So he was booting like 70-yard field goals. It was awesome. So I think that's fitting. As far as these 2 teams are concerned, Chicago already had a bye week, even though it's week 3. So they're 1-0, and San Francisco is 1-1. Then I can finally get into talking about the league and the strange setup, and therefore justifying why I'm doing audio for it. The league is kind of a hybrid between what I like about the NFL and what I like about college football. I really love bowl games. I've been obsessed with them since I was a little kid. When I was very first getting into football, my parents bought me a preseason magazine. And in the back of the magazine, it had the score of every bowl game ever, I believe. Or at least the bowl games that were still ongoing at the time. And I liked the logos, and they all had a special location and a sponsor, and it was very commercial and a very American thing. So I like bowl games. So last season, when my computer, I had to reinstall Windows, and I hadn't saved my franchise, I had to go back through the logs and get the games I was missing, and thank goodness for the logs last year, Danny. But it struck me, San Francisco is driving again, by the way. I'm hoping they get stopped because I want to see another field goal. All field goals. Yes, kick a field goal. Nice. Come on. What are we talking, like 50 yards? 17 plus. Get there. 60 yards. Nice. 3 field goals for Antonio's old team. So, the crash happened at about the 12-game mark or shortly before. And so I thought, well, why do I have to play a 16-game season? Who said that had to be that way? It's my league. I can do whatever I want. So I limped to the 12-game, and it was a kind of bad doing the franchise mode because if something went wrong technical wise, the game was played as far as the franchise was concerned. You can go back and re-record it. So there's some big matchups where the focus was on the wrong monitor, so I would record 45 minutes of the wrong screen, or there'd be weird graphical glitches. It seems like if I had it recording and then brought up the game, the colors would be all inverted, which was really cool, and I thought about posting it, but I want to put Axis out there as good as I can. I don't want it to be presented as something that's silly and glitchy or something like that. I think it's a great game, and I just decided not to. I think I deleted that raw footage, but last year was a little too ambitious. I was going to play and record every game with 15-minute quarters and post them on YouTube. And I went through several cycles where I got away there. Excuse me for a second. My voice is starting to give out already. You can't tell. But we're almost there. My plan was to take a break between quarters, because that'd be a good time to resync the audio. What was I talking about? Yeah, this what sucks about being old and being concussed. I can't remember crap. Oh yeah, far too ambitious. And I went through cycles. Started out, I was gonna do every game, record every game. So you take 36 teams times 16 games in a season. That's a lot of games. And it would be too much of a chore, and no one was watching them. And by the time the games made it to YouTube, I had already seen it, so I was putting out, and I think there still are a few games from last season where there were 0 views for games. And I'm not in this for the views, but 0 is embarrassing. We want positive integers. So some tricks I tried was I turned the volume down. It would still record the volume, and then I would have it record, and it would still record with the monitor off, and then I would turn up the audio, and if it was still game audio, I could hear people taking the snap and so forth. I would know the game was still going on, but more often than not, I would get busy and record like an hour and a half of extra crap after the game, an hour and a half of the final score. So I would cover the right 90% of the screen, so I wouldn't see the score. Then I would make and render the audio, and I would use this emulator I have for Nintendo games. You can make it, it's defaulted to always being on top, so I would move the slider on my video editor to the end. We're kicking another field goal. Oh, this is so awesome. This is going to be all field goals. Anyway. Shit. I let an S word slip. Cover your ears, kids. El Capitan's cursing. Well, it'll come to me or it won't. Oh, I'm in the second quarter. I didn't take my break. Now I gotta see if we can limp to halftime here. Chicago, I don't know if you noticed, but they're one of the teams that have their own stadium. They still sort of have Bears colors. It's kind of an interesting combination, and I didn't really think about it until just now, but an odd, like if the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Chicago Bears had a baby, you would have the Chicago Lake Hawks, and I like that Lake was incorporated into the team name. But they have one of their own stadiums. Nebraska has one, Arizona has one, Montreal has one, but I use that one for pretty much all the Canadian teams. Atlanta has one. That's kind of like my default go-to for teams that don't have a stadium. And Carolina has one. Seattle has one. I think Dallas has one. But Dallas is a whole other story. Maybe we'll get to later. San Francisco's driving again. And it's 3rd and 2. I want to keep this field goal streak going. So hopefully, the Bears are in 6-2. Hopefully they stuff it. Oh! Okay. And he fumbled. Okay. So no field goal. Anyway. I think I was at how last season ended. I was doing the tier 3 soccer thing. I like that that's uniquely Axis football-ish. Growing up, soccer was always talked about as this thing that was going to become a big thing growing up because of all the kids my age that were into soccer, and I was into soccer. But my interest in soccer had more to do with the fact that it was the most fun thing to do at recess for me. And by the time I got out there, all the basketballs were taken. So soccer was the best thing. But now, I would say the few friends I have that are actually into sports are into soccer. So maybe that time's come. So I think it's a good move to incorporate that relegation promotion thing into Axis football. And I'd still like to play. Last year my plan was to have 3 different leagues. One league where I actually played, a league where I just spectated, like this here. And if I hadn't told you that it's just computer versus computer, my bad. And then one where I just did the front office stuff. The scouting, the drafting, the hiring and firing, that sort of stuff. During COVID, I had 2 separate scares, and I was quarantined twice, and someone asked how many seasons Axis football had, and that led me to just quick simming as many games as I could. But in order to keep the game going, I had to actually draft, and then my competitive nature made it so I wanted to have at least a decent team, and you kind of had to keep your head above water financially. And just that mode alone was fun. So I wanted to do all 3 of those. And I'd still like to, but I just don't have enough time. Free time. The captain has too many interests, and once he started recording audio for games, he started referring to himself in third person. And that's when the drug use started, and okay. It was only a matter of time before I got eerily sarcastic. I missed another field goal. Oh well. I'm glad that the streaks, or did they score a touchdown? See, this brings me to another point. I would start recording every game, and I'd get tired of that, so then I would just sim them last season. And then I'd come in to see the game was like 35-36, and I'd want to know what had happened. What did I miss? And there's no replay feature. So in order to see what happened, I'd go back to recording the game and just watching it if something interesting happened. And then I would have the recording, and I'd think, well, I already have the recording. I might as well put it online. And then that would start the cycle all over again. So, yeah. But bowl games, love bowl games. So 12-game season, bowl games. There is a tournament like the NCAA, just more teams. There are conferences and divisions within the conference, like your Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, so forth. Divisions in those conferences. I know San Francisco's in the. Well, I should have that stuff up. Maybe I could get that stuff up while this game is going on. I keep thinking that the game's recording. That's another thing that would ruin games last year is I'd think I could do something while the game is going on, and instead it would lose focus and record my boring default Windows desktop for an annoying number of seconds. I think I'd even made my own technical difficulty screen to get around it. But I'm going to bring up that Chicago's in the Great Diamond Conference, and that's probably the most exotic conference name. And the reason it's called that is because teams in the Great Lakes division of the Great Diamond Conference are teams around the Great Lakes. Buffalo, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, roughly. And then in the Diamond division, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Tennessee. And if you look at those teams, they form a diamond, and there's 4 teams in that division. So there you are. The bonus is that I can tell you that Chicago defeated Minnesota 37-28 in the first game. Scores are online. At the very least, for each game, I tweet. Pioneer Sports League Sports Network tweets the results, so it's not like they're lost forever or on a Google Doc that you have to go to. But so that was their 1-0, and San Francisco is in the Western Conference in the Western Division, so they're Meta Western, and the other division is the Central Conference. So the Western Conference has Arizona, LA, Las Vegas, and San Francisco. Getting close to halftime here. You saw a little celebration there. They added those this year. I like them, but I have the time in between plays cranked all the way down to the minimum, which I believe is 4 seconds, so you can't see the celebrations play all the way out. But I encourage you to do so. But last year's games, and that added to the whole me recording the games, was because it was like the Big Ten does condensed games where they take all the crap out, all the commercials. And so you can buzz through a game in a half an hour, and that's what last year's game was like. Without any huddle or anything in between plays, you could watch a game with 15-minute quarters in roughly 35 to 40 minutes. This year there's a little more space. That's okay. I don't mind. Sometimes I wonder why I bother recording it in such good quality. It seems like YouTube always mangles it and defaults it to a much lower resolution, and the file sizes are huge, and I only have so much space, and if I don't keep this fun for myself, then the league won't keep going. And we got another field goal, and a long one. This makes the captain happy. Did that bounce off the... Did it doink? Did it do a Chris Collinsworth doink off the base of the uprights there? I'm struggling to think of the name right now. But San Francisco has a 3 possession. Ooh, nice hit. Another thing that drove me to make my own league was I find it increasingly difficult to stomach actual football because of the targeting rule and the defenseless player rule that predated the targeting rule, and blindside block took that out. There's none of that in my league. So yeah, you can hit people as hard as you want, and they're not real people. So when they get overly concussed and can't remember what they're talking about when they're hosting a game, you just make a new fake player, and no harm, no foul. So halftime. Funny thing that happened at halftime there. I was going to mention this early on, but of course I didn't. This is new to me. I recorded this game. It's kind of a test. I have another game in mind for week 1 that's going to be like the game of the week, and the goal is to do 1 game a week like this. And if this game turned out garbage, no big deal. No harm, no foul. But I was at halftime, and I tried clicking on stats, and I was like, why isn't this working? It's because it's a recording. So, yeah, it's not a game. But I'm proud that it's kind of almost, Access Football is kind of muscle memory almost at this point, where I just instinctively go to check out stats and stuff. 9 points for San Francisco. Both quarters. And this is a bit of an anomaly. Since I play 15-minute quarters, usually the players have ridiculous stats. And the scores are usually in the 40s or 50s for both teams. It's varied a little bit as the early stages of the game have played out. Adjustments, tweaks, nerfs, buffs. Not unlike a MMO, as Danny tries to make the game as realistic as possible as far as simulation goes. So an 18-0 game at halftime's kind of unusual, but I'm not being sarcastic when I say I like me some long field goals. One of my regrets about the Axis E-League, the official E-League of Axis football that went on last season around this time, was that I didn't dump just a ton of money in a kicker. I had a really crappy kicker, and then they made the kickers worse because the kickers were too awesome. They were, booting 80-yarders in a sweat, and that's a problem for the people that want the game to be as real, true to life as possible. So going into the season, I didn't bother putting any points into kickers because a straight C kicker, C as in like a grade average, was plenty good enough for me. So I didn't see the need to dump points into them. And then they nerfed the game, so the kickers weren't as good. And then suddenly I had a really bad, nice interception. And he got a first down. That's always good on an interception. But I'm not sure I've ever seen a shutout that wasn't against Miami or Dallas. So we'll see. I doubt that that'll happen, but Devon Childs, 50 yards. There's this calculation that I do over and over and over again, and you would think that doing it so often I wouldn't need to do it, but it's how many rushing yards per game does a player need to reach 1,000 yards. The college version, the pro version, 11 games, and then 12 games, and then pro, you have 16, and now you have 17 this year. But in my brain, he almost had a touchdown there. He dropped it. I wonder if that was Antonio. Not the best stat line for Timmy there. Running back out of the backfield. I love that his name's Timmy. That a grown football player would go by Timmy. That's just awesome. Oh, there's Antonio. That's my boy. I haven't talked to him in almost a year. Sorry about my alarm. It's time to take my Captain Can Breathe pill. So we finally got a touchdown. And 25-0. So not the best game, but it's kind of not the point. I'm just, like I said, this was the test game. Sort of a dress rehearsal. Because I'd done like tests. I've done like single quarters and things like that. And they were kind of mixed. Even though I'm paying very little attention to the game, or so it seems like, this is way easier than constantly robotically regurgitating the... Chicago's finally got across 50-yard line there. Regurgitating the down and distance and so forth. And they're in field goal range at least. And I think being the third quarter, they'd still kick a field goal. I think that's how the algorithm's set. Yeah, he's not going to get there. I could tell already by the animation that he wasn't going to get there. I'm hoping they get stuffed and Chicago kicks a field goal too. That would be awesome. Was that a direct snap? I don't know. Point is, stopped, so hopefully they kick a field goal. He missed it. So you see the big, huge hawk there, the lake hawk, and then that chosen thing, and you got the gridiron helmets thing, and the Tryon advertisements. Those are actual advertisements. I've gone back and forth with the gridiron helmets guy. I called him Mr. Helmets on Twitter and in other places, and he seemed to get a kick out of that. But oh, yeah, big reception. Yeah. Where's Antonio? Is he right wide receiver? Oh no, we're giving it to Childs. Okay. One of the bowl games is going to be the Gridiron Bowl, and like regular college games, because there's conferences, there's going to be conference tie-ins. And I asked him, if he had any preferences, and since his website sells Axis helmets, it was any teams that are in the game was his requirement. And since he was the first to say go, he'll probably get the pick of the two best teams that don't make the playoffs for the bowl game, the Gridiron Bowl. It's a little more difficult this year because the midfield logos, they don't have their own file. So a team's main logo, what you would do in games past would be whichever team was the home team, you'd make their end zones whatever you wanted, and you'd make the midfield. Like I participated in an all-star game with Antonio, actually, playing for San Francisco, but it was a matter of minutes. You'd swap out the midfield logo and the end zones, and you had an all-star field with an official logo and end zones to match and so forth. But there is no midfield logo in this year's game, so it might take some finagling, but I'm pretty sure from what you guys see, you don't even see the large logo, which is the logo in the folder. So I think it can still be done, and just swap the files in and out for the teams. I don't recall off the top of my head. I know each conference will have a conference championship, and then of course all of those conference winners will make the tournament, and all the tournaments will be in the form of bowl games that rotate. Or maybe they don't. I kind of like the Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl thing where you're just locked into there, and that's where you're going. So I might do that. Like, the Western Conference team always plays the Great Diamond team in the Danny Bowl or something in the first round. I had it all figured out how big the playoffs were going to be. Look at Antonio go. He's not even all souped up like he was in the league. Yeah, they're running away now, and he can dance. Don't think he can't. My voice is failing me, though. I think the more I do this, though, the stronger my voice will get. 35-0. So I picked a good game to ignore while I talk about myself. And if you're still listening, God bless you. Excuse me. And excuse me. I'm so used to doing podcasts and taking out all the uhs and ums and stuff that when I do that here, it gets way trickier because I'm hoping this will match up with the game real nice and not cause me problems, but I'm doing one continuous audio recording, and then I'll match it up with the video, and then I'll cut it like halftime, I just let it roll. And in 43 seconds, I'm going to take a break. I don't know what people that talk a lot do to keep their voice fresh, but maybe I'll Google that before the fourth quarter starts. So we know Antonio's 1, which I thought was his number, but like if I had to guess, if this was a midterm, I would have seeded up and guessed 1. Start of the fourth quarter, 35-0. No mercy from San Francisco. I believe San Francisco did very well in last season's season. The tiers were random, except for Nebraska, because you have to play as a team if you're using franchise mode. So I tried to be as hands-off as I could with Nebraska. That's part of the reason why this season you don't see Nebraska and a lot of other teams. Well, it's not the reason you don't see a lot of other teams. I wanted to be completely neutral, have no even accused of any slight preference. And some of the teams I created I'm pretty attached to and couldn't help but root for. So I believe this league, this year, we went from 36 to 26, and the 10 teams that aren't in, they'll slowly make their way in, with the exception of Nebraska. Other teams, I have 4 traveling teams that will kind of fill in the blanks. Again, because it's like college, teams pick who they're playing for non-conference. So I kind of just eyeballed it this year, so to speak. But I plan on it being easier and easier the more teams I add, and eventually want to get to the point, more teams, it means more bowl games, so, and more conferences and so forth. And the only tricky part is the helmets, getting the logo in the right place. It can look very silly very easily. And I'm not a Photoshop guy. I'm too old. I missed that by maybe 5-10 years. And I also work staring at this very monitor for at least 40 hours a week. So the idea of teaching myself Photoshop and sitting anymore at all in front of this computer is very unappealing to me. So I'm doing my best. Just slowly. There's Antonio again, and I want to see Antonio's stats. Timmy there is pushing 400 yards. Devon there just got trucked. Stats on our 42-second drive here. And he got killed again. I started to make hits tape. Something I did growing up with a VCR, and the biggest hits I would make into a tape of them, but with TV's become high definition and stuff, it looks pretty nasty, and hitting is pretty much illegal now in the NFL and in college football, so it's frowned upon. Another field goal, though. So I'm a little bit surprised. As I was starting to say, the 3 tiers were, I randomized them. So, but Chicago did well in their tier, if I remember correctly, and San Francisco did not. So on paper, I was thinking this would be, if you had just said 41-0. I would have guessed it was Chicago 41 and Yeah, Chicago 41 and San Francisco 0. So that's why I run the games, basically. Let's see, we talked about. So I've said pretty much everything to do with college, but the pro aspect is no recruiting. I do plan on having a draft, and even broadcasting the draft. The financial aspect, I'm going to base bowl payouts based on, I know there's payouts in the franchise mode for winning various tiers. I don't know what the payoffs are for the new model this year where they have quote-unquote normal divisions and standings. But that all has to be balanced with how much time I have and how fun it is. So we'll see how it goes. I think I jumped over a major hurdle by just attempting to record this audio. Hunt just runs him over. Yeah, so that's the league, and I'll have a mixture. I did a tweet with very important. I recorded an entire game, and then I showed a really key play in the game. It's like a 6-second video. See, it's 3, but from this distance it looks like a 1. So, yeah, he's a stud. My boy Antonio. So, shutout's still looking good. But like I was saying, I did the Twitter thing with the brief video. I've also done stills of very key moments, and if I record the game, I can play with it until I get to the exact right frame, and then take the shot and post it as a still, and then write it up like a little mini article. And I like that because there's no degradation of the video quality. When I record the game, I mean, this is looking really crisp and perfect in front of me. But as soon as I shove it onto YouTube, it gets kicked down quite a bit, even at the highest settings. And I still would encourage you to check your settings and crank it up as high as you can, that your bandwidth will allow, your internet speed. But with the stills, there's no degradation. It's a picture, it's a screen grab, so it looks pretty sharp. And we're at 338, and it's still 48-0. I'd have to go back and look at. I don't think there's been one this year, and I don't think there was one. Oh, another one for the hits tape. Like I said, I started to make it, and I had several hits on it, and now it's lost in my computer somewhere. I don't know what I called it. But by actually sitting and talking through the games, I see the. See, those are the kind of stats in the corner there that I was talking about. Just passed for almost 500 yards. Timmy, that is. That's another thing that's beneficial about doing it this way is players that do not exist become. I don't want to say they have a personality, but they become more interesting, like Timmy there. The more we do this, and the more it goes on. And I cheer on my boy Antonio here. I should mention that if you reach a certain tier at Patreon for the Access Football League, you can have a player named after yourself. I'm the quarterback for Nebraska. I was stoked this year. I lost 20-ish pounds. And Danny was nice enough to reflect that with the quarterback for Nebraska. So Hill Capitan is happy. Another interception there. That ought to do it for the shutout. So if nothing else, I backed into the only shutout I can recall. Ooh. That looked hard on the knees there. Chicago's calling timeouts. I don't know that I'd be in 6-2, because once you get past that line of scrimmage, it's... And they're taking their second. Got 3 downs. Got a run play here, and they'll call a timeout. Childs is taking a beating. He's got 100 yards, though, so he's on pace for a 1,000-yard season. But I want to say it was Atlanta or Arizona that had a guy that ran for almost 400 yards in a game. So 3rd and 4. They're going to not make the first down, and they're going to kick another field goal. That would make me happy. If they get it under 40 seconds, though, which they can if they don't snap it. But the computer's driving, so we'll see how it plays out. Because they're not going to take a knee on 4th down. So we're under 40. He got the first down. Okay, they're going to take knees now. It would be fitting if they ended the game on a field goal, even though it was 51-0. That would be perfect. So he might not even snap it. You shouldn't have to. See, if this were a real game, they'd all be crossing the field, and there'd be security on either side of the coaches. But we have to use our imaginations. That's fine. 5, 4, 3, and he did take a knee. So that's it, 48-0. And I'll look and see if that is indeed the only shutout. Not only this season, but all of last season, too. Look at Antonio. 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. What a stud. Okay, thank you for listening. This went good on my end. I don't know if I can stomach listening to it myself, but I'll have the First Lady of Axis Football give it a listen and see what she thinks. And we'll put it out there, and I'm kind of looking forward to now recording that big matchup. It's number 3 versus number 4. That's the other college aspect, is that I rank the teams 1 to 26, partially based on calculating how good their actual roster is, which you can do with computer players. You have exact number values to go with strength, speed, etc. So it's partially based on that, partially based on record. And I didn't do it for the first couple weeks because it's hard to judge. I could have done it solely based on roster, but decided not to. It ended up being more work than I thought, but I'm going over here. We're staring at final score there. And I will hopefully see you for the official game of the week for week 3. And thank you so much for listening.